Just have a few more. Alpha, I think you can close the door. I think you can close the doors. Okay, he doesn't listen. Okay, so I hope that you can all hear me, and thank you. So the noise from the outside doesn't disrupt us. So first of all, welcome everybody. I'm Cecilia Bolenfeldt. I'm the Director General of Digital Europe. We represent 45,000 companies. We are present in 35 countries, and I would say our amazing assets are 42 national associations. I see many of my friends here today who are basically also a part of bringing digital skills and upgrading our digital skills framework all over Europe and beyond. Because we are representing all the member states of Europe, but also in Ukraine, Moldova, Turkey, Switzerland, Norway, and UK. And of course, we have an office in Washington to make sure that we keep the transatlantic dialogue going. I think industry is really becoming the bridge between countries and between people. So I would like to extend a special welcome to our EVP, Menzato. You are the Vice President, and then you have a very long title, for Social Rights, Skills, Quality Job, and Preparedness. Quality jobs, that's exactly what we can deliver. Highly paid, skilled job, innovative jobs across all sectors if we have digital skills. Because digital skills is not for the digital sector only. This is a cross-sectorial issue that we are addressing. From nurses to manufacturing to health to defense, this is becoming an absolutely key to address. So just earlier this year, in September, we had 55 CEOs signing the AI and Tech Declaration. The AI and Tech Declaration clearly stating that the right skills and the digital skills is at the core, not only for our competitiveness and for bringing along all the people on this journey of the, I would say, third technological revolution. It is actually also very key for our resilience and how we address the threats coming from Russia and elsewhere. We have seen the resilience of Ukraine and how it is directly linked to their ability of skilling their people in digital skills. Let me mention an example. 70% of drone pilots are women. What does it take to skill a drone pilot? 6 years of training? No, 2 to 3 weeks. And then the rest is on-the-job training. They are building AI platforms, not only for the defense, but also for their public sector, and optimizing all the processes all across, from fraud detections to more efficient hospitals. Well, there is a long way to go. We say that we are aiming of 80% of basic digital skills. We are only halfway. And that's only on the basic skills. Well, maybe we should change the target and say, how can we move agile? How can we make short, targeted educations to bring along citizens, also from the normal group that we don't think as techies, nurses in tactical medicine, women for drone pilots, AI for workers and factories. There are so many things that we can do. Advanced skills is just around the corner. Basic skills is not even enough. Only 1 in 5 ICT specialists are women. There is no reason for this. Women can be educated to tech specialists in a very short time. We actually have, for example, a project called Women for IT, where we reskilled 900 women from administrative functions like secretaries and PAs to digital specialists, all of them had a higher paid job within a month. So unfortunately, this was a project. So do we need more projects, or do we take the existing projects that we have and we scale them? We don't have this kind of project problem. We basically have a scalability problem. And I'm very happy to see that countries like Finland, Denmark, and Estonia are now implementing mandatory digital skills and AI skills in secondary schools. This is exactly what we need. So we are doing a lot in Digital Europe. And of course, we have this big, amazing pool of very cool tech companies, but also our national associations. And with them, we are collaborating with a lot of universities across Europe to build a more resilient and more digital Europe. One of the things that I would basically to join is that we will in February launch a new initiative called Elevate. So this is a collaboration that started with what can I say, 5 cool women. So the minister from Estonia, Ukraine, Germany, and Norway, and myself, and my vice president, Doris from Estonia, to basically launch a program to educate and to bring women into tech. And the first thing that we will do is basically launch a program that inspired on what they do in Ukraine and now in Estonia, to educate women to become drone pilots and specialists in tactical medicine. The Ukrainians know how to do it. They do it. 2 weeks, 3 weeks programs, walking in from the street, basically educated into these functions in 2 to 3 weeks. We will try to replicate that across Europe, not only in these countries, but across Europe, to all the countries that wants to join, to all the organizations that wants to join. And this is the kind of agility that we can do much more of. We have companies that can train AI specialists in how to use agents, in how to use it for machinery and other things. In 2-3 weeks, we can lift skills. We stand ready as Digital Europe to be the facilitator on the next wave of agile digital education. And we have 4 main recommendations so skills can scale. Let's look at how we can work cross-border with common definitions, common standards, and common programs. On investment in people, not just in technologies. In the end, people will pave the way for our success and competitiveness and resilience. Build skills with the market, not next to it. We know how to do it. We wake up, innovate, and we train. We know how to do it, and we only have one interest in industry, is to make us more competitive and have people come along on this digital revolution. Expand the talent pool. Women and minorities must be central. And let's not split them out. In the countries where education are given to minorities or to special groups like elderly people, we don't see them left behind. They can do this. It's not hard. So we stand ready to be the facilitator of this digital next, bringing everybody along into the digital decade. And with that, let me welcome on stage, first, and this is of course your invitation to the 25th of February, let me welcome to the stage the EVP Minzato, and thank you so much for your leadership, please.
I think I will be there because it's a Wednesday. Wednesdays I am in Brussels because it's college day. So this is a relief for me because I wouldn't have wanted to miss it. So Vanessa will put it in the agenda. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your work and for your willingness to engage beyond your own industries, organizations, and an area of expertise to deliver change for Europe, change for the better. course, I had a very nice speech prepared here, but there's audiences where I feel that even those speeches are well built to deliver all the numbers and all the right messages, I feel that it's better that I look at you and we engage a bit more direct as to what we can do together. The digital transition, we had a very interesting breakfast before I came here, is already something that is happening every day. It's here, AI is here, as was mentioned in the morning. Digital tools are necessary not just for the labor market, but also for us to be able to participate in society, in democracies. So the discussion about what we do in Europe to skill our population so that they can have access to technology, so that they can work with different types of AI and different intensities and disruptions in the future as well, is a complex discussion. The Union of Skills, which we launched in March, it's a policy document of the EU strategy that we propose for skills, has this mindset. It's a bit of a preparedness mindset. So it's not just your average, let's see what we do better in education, but it is about having this mindset institutionally. We're building it, of course, European institutions, member states, parliament, all the stakeholders, that we need to equip people with skills for jobs, for democracies, online, offline. So it's a bit of a holistic process throughout their life. So the measures we propose there refer to, of course, initial education. They refer to higher education, vocational training, and to lifelong learning, adult education. And we are looking also, of course, at the later stages of adult learning, because everybody needs to be part of the digital transition. And what I mentioned to the colleagues in the breakfast in the morning is that I'm quite haunted, not from now that I have this job, of the risks of digital exclusion and of the need to have digital inclusion, so that geography or age or profession doesn't constitute or doesn't create for you a challenge or an obstacle to have access to all the benefits of new technologies, including AI. So all this that I'm saying, you all know, what can the EU do is the good question, and how can you do it smartly? How can you do it faster? How can you do it at scale? That was, again, also the tone of the conversation with some of the stakeholders present here in the morning. First of all, what I do as Commissioner for Education and Skills is try to bring the conversation at a different level. So not just with ministers of education, not just with the usual suspects, but to talk to prime ministers, to talk to ministers of finance, of budgets, talking about how important, central, existential it is to look at skills and education from a perspective of urgency and of a turning point, especially with the digital transition. Of course, we have other challenges as well on our labor markets, in our societies. But digital and AI do not allow us time to breathe and to be in our usual routine and in our usual processes with our a bit more conservative approach, taking the time that we need to adjust. So this is quite important, and this is an invitation that I put forward to all audiences with whom I engage, that we need to go across, to start speaking about the importance of education, like we talk about security, like we talk about defense, like we talk about many important subjects, housing crisis. So this is existential. So it is somehow reflected in the Union of Skills. I won't go into very technical details, but the way we propose to govern, to manage a bit the initiatives that we put there is rather agile. I won't use big words because we are the EU. We are not a country. We are not a federation. We are the EU. We are a complex mechanism, a sensitive balance. So this has to be respected, and I will not come here and offer you a speech that is not adapted to the current reality of the EU. But inside this, the governance that we propose still is meant to deliver agility and a sense of urgency. Or, for example, my intention is that we set up, as I announced in the Union of Skills, an advisory, high-level skills board, an advisory that would work with the Commission on the initiatives on skills, that is bringing closer private sector with the education providers, with social partners, with governments from member states, so that we don't meet just from time to time in different breakfasts, strategic dialogues or initiatives, but we have this constant tool that is able to feed us the knowledge, the expertise, the input on how we advance with our different initiatives year by year. This is very important. Then their work will feed also our work in the European semester, which may be a bit technical, but it is a strong tool at the European level to coordinate the economic and fiscal policies of member states, and it does deliver results. And now we have a new recommendation on human capital inside the semester process, which is yearly, which helps us because in this human capital recommendation, which while it's called recommendation, does shape the way that the funds, the EU funds, are invested in member states. This new human capital recommendation that I've just presented 2 weeks ago as a deliverable of Union of Skills will go to the desks of ministers of finance. It's not just the prime ministers, and it's not just ministers of education that will look at the alert that we put there. What are the problems that we see as overall in the EU, and what needs to be done? So, for example, in this first edition of the recommendation, we've mentioned the worrisome, alarming trends on basic skills. We need to do something about it. And the basic skill set includes digital skills and citizenship skills. This is quite important. It's not just numeracy and literacy, it's also science. It also, this important set that I would choose to look at together, more better digital skills together with more critical thinking, with more ability to tackle disinformation, misinformation, emotional education. So this is citizenship skills with digital skills. So we put this in this human capital recommendation so that we push the action of our member states in the direction of investing, working on standards, supporting the teachers, the schools, because this is important. This is just one example of what this human capital recommendation includes. It also refers to, this time, the investment level of member states, because again, we have EU funds, but we have private sector that invests, but we also need national budgets, local budgets. We need to work together in a smart way. And the way that we use the recommendation, that we can connect it with the strategic needs of Europe. If it's cybersecurity, if it's drones, if it's preparedness, we can for sure use this tool to to align better our skilling investments into sectors that are relevant EU-wide and relevant for Europe's strengths. And this is quite important. Why? Because in the current MFF, and I'm quite familiar with how we use EU money because that's what I did in Romania for almost all my life. In the current MFF, what I started to say to my colleagues is, let's see how much money do we have for education and skills. Of course, it's scattered all over, from the cohesion policy, European Social Fund Plus, a bit of Erasmus, a bit of InvestEU, digital education, a number of tools. And of course, while the amount might not seem small, 150 billion for education and skills is not quite bad, I would say. But the idea is how you focus, how you prioritize, and how you help Europe, our single market, reap the benefits of these investments. So this human capital recommendation, this semester tool that I mentioned, is not of little importance. And finally, I would want to mention that Europe needs also have a better understanding of trends in terms of skills anticipation, skills forecast at a EU level, not just regional, because again, the EU needs to re-legitimize itself, so to re-strengthen itself with each generation. So of course, whether we have 5 or 6 member states that might be stronger at certain topics and the rest are not catching up, this does not help. We might have pools and pockets of excellence in digital, and if everybody is not on board, this does not help. So we need to look at skills anticipation and skills strength across Europe, connect them with what we do as we invest in our competitiveness, in our security, in our defense, in everything, and invest in skills in a very coherent manner. And that means talking to member states so that they align to these trends, so that everybody has their own story about how they approach investment in skills, or of course, many times, and we have to approach this discussion, how we manage our fiscal, financial policies so that education and skills are not sidelined or, put into waiting lines. So this is quite political, what I'm telling you, but in my opinion, it is essential. Of course, it's not difficult to create very good initiatives, and the inspiration that I got this morning is quite amazing on concrete tools, because I received such concrete examples of what we can do together in a very short term. But in reality, the societal effort that we need to go towards, the idea of, we're looking at a population that has basic skills, or I don't know how to define basic skills, in basic digital skills of below half, while already 90% of the jobs require, digital skills, and then AI is a different story, and the dynamic of the intensity, the requirements change. So we will need a societal change, a mindset change, to which we need to participate beyond very specific initiatives. And of course, it's my commitment that I will do that with our member states, because that means that with universities, with education providers, we need, of course, to change the mindset, the incentives for all categories of population to want to participate, to have access to skilling throughout their lifetime. And this is quite important. Now, of course, I know the EU has an important role to play in setting standards and helping with the certification, the portability of skills, the recognition of skills. So for first, setting standards is something that we already do. On AI literacy, we work also with the OECD, but it's also a question of more work to be done to create more trust between member states, quality assurance systems, also looking at how we can enhance the use of micro-credentials. And so that is a conversation that is happening, and the concrete output will be this skills portability initiative, which we'll present in the summer, part of the Fair Labor Mobility Package. It will have some legal proposals as well. So it is meant exactly to do that, to allow for a faster, easier, automatic recognition of skills, to improve the recognition also for professional qualifications. But then it's always also about implementation. You know that very well. We propose, there's a negotiation between Parliament, member states, and then implementation. So that's why we need, beyond these macro tools that we put on the table, these concrete partnerships that we will have year by year, that do not necessarily mean legislation or tools that take a bit of time. But indeed, I think what is the final tone of or the final message of my speech and my address to you is that we need to work closer together. Some have already said some small things around that. She's trying to privatize education, and this is not the truth. The Commissioner is quite aware that if we do not strengthen the private partnership for education and skills, it's already too late. But I mean, you cannot pay this price of ignoring this basic reality. And we see with tests, with assessments, with the younger generation, how big the gap is becoming. So clearly, we need to become much more agile. We need to work on micro credentials. We need to work at how we teach teachers and how we use AI in teaching teachers. We need to look at all these things. We are doing all these things. I am trying to create a sense of urgency that these things cannot be thought of as a non-ambition for 2030, 2035, that things happen now, in the now. So I invite you to be partners with us, of course, in all these initiatives, to contribute. And what I want, that is in the high-level skills board, this advisory that will support the Commission in its work to implement our initiatives, the digital industry to be, of course, well represented in the smartest, most impactful, and the most calibrated way as well. Thank you again for the invitation. I won't go into other details. I wish you a lot of inspiration for the new year, because we are ending this year and preparing for 2026. For sure, it's going to be at least as intense. But out of crisis and out of intensity and out of challenge always comes innovation, as was mentioned here a bit before. For me, Ukraine is also a great source of inspiration, also in social services, not just technology. Out of crisis, Europe has gone stronger. Out of crisis, innovation can occur and makes us agile. So intensity is our friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vivinsat, for straightforward insights, and also that you're bringing out the urgency of the private cooperation. I can ensure that we as a digital technology sector, we're definitely interested to be part of it and to collaborate there to help you fulfill your vision. And now let's go on with our program here today. I'm Doris Gold, the Vice President of Digital Europe's board, and also in my daily life leading the Estonian Digital Technology Organization. And my today's task here is, I hope, rather easy, is to support the conversations that will take place on the stage and to foster the environment for the bold ideas to grow. So before we start, I would like to mention that, as you see already, that our event will be photographed and the pictures are done, and also the videos. And we're using it in the Digital Europe's and in our partners' media. So if there is anyone who doesn't want to be in the picture, please let us know. Let you know in the receptions, in the registration desk. So then we know to take into account that part. But with that, I think we are ready to our next keynote speaker. And I'm very happy to invite to the stage, I think, the organizations who have taken the skills in AI of our future to be one of their hard topics. And please welcome to the stage Karen Massin from Google, who is also one of the sponsors of today's event. So Karen, please.
I'm a bit smaller than Doris. Good morning, everybody. I'm very glad to be here with you today, and actually to be the fourth woman speaking in a row, which I have to say is still not, the trade in Brussels. Thank you very much, Tia, for that. Yeah, we can upload it because it doesn't happen very much. We're meeting in a moment of a profound duality. I mean, on one hand, we see the incredible promises of the Union of Skills, a vision where the European talent moves freely, where people innovate boldly, and where they lead globally. On the other hand, there is kind of a stark, reality, which I think has been mentioned by the Draghi report. I've done the bingo today. We don't need to do that anymore for the whole conference. But it's been really warning us about, the existential challenge that we face regarding competitiveness. And it highlighted a productivity gap that is widening, that is not shrinking. But what I want to suggest today is not just an economic gap. It's actually a security gap. And in 2025, we cannot separate competitiveness from cybersecurity. We can build a digital shield, but we don't have the hands to defend it. And why is it the urgency is so acute now? I think we've all heard about the fact that we have entered an AI age, and this technology is the steam engine of our generation. It's a technology that will reshape every sector, from healthcare to defense. And at the center of this change is the remarkable opportunity of AI. This is what the philosophers and the economists call an invention of inventions. It's a tool which is going to basically make massive breakthroughs. It's going to provide a chance for scientific progress. It's going to reshape nearly every aspect of our life. But beyond that, it will support not just technological and economic development, it's also going to be the security of Europe in a multipolar world. Last State of the Union speech, President von der Leyen indicated I arrived at the essential content. The widespread adoption of AI for the EU will actually boost by 1.2 trillion this year. And to make it fast, it will be another 450 billion if we accelerate the development. But that fundamental change actually also the security landscape. It brings us face to face with what we call the defender's dilemma. Attackers only need to succeed once, and the defenders must succeed every single time, every day, to be basically upping their game. With AI lowering the barrier for sophisticated attacks, the asymmetry is growing. We are seeing threats which move faster and scale larger than ever before. Cyber attacks have increased by 44% in 2024. And what we see is that actually the SMEs are like the main target. But AI is, of course, also an opportunity which can help tilt these scales to give cyber defenders a decisive advantage over attackers. Agentic AI is using that as being at the frontier of cyber defense, allowing us to find and to catch vulnerabilities at much speed. We take, for example, we've developed an agent which is basically hunting the unknown security vulnerabilities in the software. We have another agent, for instance, which is basically automatically fixing the vulnerabilities in the codes and can rewrite the codes automatically and remove an entire class of vulnerability. And all of us are developing this kind of agents. But the tools alone are not enough to fully reverse the defender's dilemma. We need a human firewall to make sure that we use the best use of technology. We need a workforce that is trained on AI tools and approaches all tasks with a security mindset. If we want Europe to be more competitive, if we want to protect our critical infrastructure, at the the stability of the institutions, then Europe needs to have a talent pipeline that moves as fast as it can scale. Right now, the pipeline is a bit blocked. There is a gap between the actions and the ambitions. The recent studies outlined from PISA and the Commission said there is a gap of 300,000 cybersecurity experts. SMEs make 99% of our economy, and we saw that they have like 40% of them were into the cyber attacks. And this is why, we need to make sure that the European security skills framework is going to actually, allow basically this recruitment, to have cybersecurity staff. I completely missed that one, but that's okay. You got it. Basically, we need to make sure that we got the staff workforce to basically match the needs. In short, cybersecurity constraints remain while the skill needs are growing. And that's from a study which was published recently from ISC2. We have excellent universities, which is an interesting paradox. And this is what EVP means that you were saying. We have brilliant minds, but we're not basically scaling that specialized talent fast enough to meet geopolitical moment. At Google, we decided long ago that we would not just be a spectator to this challenge, that we would partner. We have been investing for the last 25 years in Europe. We've invested into infrastructure, into the cloud, into regions. We've actually done a lot of partnership with European companies. We've expanded our campus. I'm very glad to say that actually most of our talent in terms of developing our global capacities is in Europe. So for instance, in Munich, we have our privacy expert. We have about 4,000 engineers. In Malaga, we have our cybersecurity expert. And in Dublin, we have our content safety experts. Since 2015, we have actually trained 15 million people all over the world into digital skills. But the number alone are not enough of the story. The type of skills also matter. And this is why with our philanthropic arm, Google.org, we've actually widened the focus to make sure we would train the people on cybersecurity and AI. In 2023, we launched the Cybersecurity Seminars program, where we invested 15 million to help universities to train the next generation of cyber defenders. This is part of the previous commission, Cyber for Skills. And we think this is very important that, we help to do that. So how do we do that? Basically, we have now supporting 22 universities in 16 countries. And what we want to make sure that we don't actually teach them theoretical skills, but also very practical skills. So we basically help them work together with charities, with school, with hospital on the practical cases about how you increase that cybersecurity, and that's how we train them. Let me give you a few examples. In Greece, the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, the impact has been immediate. When the students basically have finished their internship, the day after, they were already hired to have jobs into SMEs. In Spain, we work with a Fundae partnership, and then basically we've been supporting training and certification of women from disadvantaged groups so that they actually can get a certificate which allows them to have a position after. And in Ukraine, we work with students in Kyiv so that they could actually train over 1,000 teachers and 10,000 school children on the digital literacy during the first year only. But of course, beyond universities, we need to make sure that there is no one who's going to be left behind. And this is why, we think it's very important. We've been also supporting non-profit organizations because we need to make sure that the people are going, who are the most vulnerable are going to be included as well, so that we can upskill them. This is how skilling works in action. It has to be tangible, it has to be local, and it has to be scaling. And I think this is where really is at the heart of the discussion today. However, individual initiatives from the company, no matter how large, we are, it's just not enough. And if we want to close the gap, we have to work in a more systemic change. We need to unlock the full power of the public-private partnership that we've discussed before. So how do we get that right? We see that there are three priorities. The first is that we need to treat skills as infrastructure. So as we build bridges on grids, we must build the soft infrastructure of the talent. This means recognizing the industry certification, which are often faster and more up-to-date than the traditional curriculum. We welcome the Commission's Skills Portability initiative, but we must be ambitious. We need a fast-track mechanism for recognizing industry-led micro-credentials across border. If an industry analyst has a certification from Poland, they should be able to find a job in Italy. Better weather. So I think everyone wants that. And we cannot let bureaucracy basically let us down. Second, we need to make sure that we have security by design in our education. Cybersecurity cannot be treated as a niche skill. It has to be learned across all the disciplines. So the next students who are going to graduate into law, into engineering, into medicine should actually have automatically that certification. All of us, we've done some certification processes, and we would be very happy to share that. And finally, we must embrace openness. Europe's strength lies into the diversity and the different alliances. We need to ensure that it does not become a digital isolation. And this is why, for us, the true sovereignty comes from having the choice to use the best technology available and the skills to control it. We partner with different European leaders like Thales and Telecom Italia to make sure that we can combine the global infrastructure with a trusted local oversight. To conclude, the Union of Skills is a prerequisite for Europe's future competitiveness, security, and prosperity. We are here to partner and work together, not just to fund programs, but also to help build a secure, competitive, and skills workforce that Europe deserves. So let's turn our ambition into action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen, for giving very concrete ideas how the skills management can be done in real action. And now it's time for our first panel discussion. AI is redefining the sector. I think everybody knows that. And Europe now needs the workforce that are capable not only of using AI, but also developing it, governing it, and applying it responsibly, let's say. And our first panel will bring together the leaders from government, from commission, from industry, and together they will discuss how to crack the AI skills and shape the Europe's AI strategy, let's say. Dear guests, now it's this point where also your interventions through the questions is allowed. The moderators will give a chance for that. So keep that in mind, that when they give a chance, then use it. You can ask the questions from the moderator, then the panel moderator will give a chance for that. And without further ado, I'm honored to give a stage to our first panel moderator, who is Julian. I would say that he is a wizard of AI and data in Digital Europe. And so please, Julian, please come to the stage and all the first panel speakers.
I hope it works. Perfect. I think you can hear me. Yeah, I'm inviting to the stage our panelists. Just maybe to mention, one of our panelists is running a bit late, Gosha from the Commission. So she will be joining the panel also, I think, in just a few minutes. But please come to the stage. So, thanks a lot. Whatever you want. Yes. So feel free to just choose a seat.
We have a man for
We have two men, actually, including me, the moderator. And as I said, we'll have another woman, Gosha, joining us very soon. All right. So I think we have already a very good set of panelists. So today the idea is really to try to see how can we really help upskill and reskill when it comes to AI. And I think this is what's most important these days when we have these topics, when we see let's say the craze about AI, all the discussions that we see over the past few years. We've seen more and more people wondering about how will be the impact, what will be the scale of the impact that AI will have on our lives, and I think on our work. Potentially a lot of things will be changing in the future. So this is the kind of things we've been trying to discuss today. And I didn't introduce myself, but I'm Julien Chasseur. I'm working from Digital Europe, so together with Cecilia, who was speaking a bit earlier. And we have the chance, as Cecilia explained, to work with 42 national associations active all across Europe, and also with 120 global companies And all of them are active in the AI space, of course. And all of them develop AI. They have their own software solutions. They have their own products embedding AI. And they're also deploying AI. They're customers. They're buying AI as well. So they're all across the value chain. And those companies, I would say, the members of our organization, they're already at the forefront of AI. They have a better understanding of AI than I would say many other companies. And already for them, when I talk to them, it is already sometimes challenging. It is not easy. Then you imagine for companies that don't have necessarily this tech or digital mindset, it is even more difficult. And it is also difficult for the employees to really grasp how they can use AI. Even though we have a lot of opportunities with AI, we'll have also some challenges. So before I start introducing the panelists, just maybe to go back, I think with ChatGPT, with tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, and others, it's been, let's say, the past 3-4 years, people have some people have discovered AI, but AI has been there for a long time. I mean, it started basically in the 50s, in the 60s and the 70s, we had some early applications. Then there was not enough computing power also at the time. It was very difficult to advance. So it's a field that was reserved mostly to researchers, to a few engineers for some time. But if you fast forward a few decades, then let's say we started really having the tech world, tech companies really getting into AI with, of course, data analysis. You had recommendation systems for platforms. So really a first set of uses that started, let's say, the past 10, 20 years. And now if you fast forward again to the past 5 years, AI has been used almost everywhere. I don't think there's one sector where AI is not being deployed, AI is not being tested. Of course, what it means is that now we have massive gaps to fill when it comes to AI skills, because we are in a situation where virtually any company, any public administration is thinking about how can I use AI to improve the processes, potentially to make the lives of my employees easier, for businesses, how to make potentially efficiency gains, how to make more money, and all these questions means that AI will be deployed at scale. But then, how do we do this? How do we train the workforce? How do we help? How do we support the people that will be affected, the people that will be working with AI? So these are the kind of things that I think we've been trying to discuss. And maybe also just something that is important, of course, is raising awareness about AI, about the benefits, about the challenges. And I think as Commissioner Munsatu just said, it's very important that we have a digital inclusion mindset and not an exclusion of people that would not feel like they can benefit from AI. And this is something that is extremely important. This notion of really making sure that we can have basic to advanced skills at scale. Just to mention a few of the topics we'll be discussing. So the AI talent pipeline, also, as I mentioned already, scalability, very important, and then public-private synergies. So now we have a unique blend of perspective today, and I'm very happy to have with us, and soon also joining us also as well someone else. We have Nana Louise Linde, Vice President of European Affairs at Microsoft. We have Rod Evans, EMEA Vice President for Supercomputing, AI Factories, and NVIDIA Cloud Partners at NVIDIA. And then, last but not least, we have Dimosthenis Anagностopoulos, from Secretary General for Information Systems and Digital Governance at the Hellenic Ministry of Digital Governance. And very soon we'll be also joined by Gosha Nikovska, the head of Unit A4 at the AI Office, part of the European Commission. She's actually running from another event, which is on the other side of Brussels. So that's why we will be starting, I think, the conversation, and then she will have the chance to join us. So, as I was mentioning, we'll, I think, try to dive into a lot of different topics. To my fellow panelists, feel free to also comment on what the others are saying. I think the idea is really to have a dynamic conversation. So please also, in the audience, you will have the chance at the end to ask questions. So feel free to direct your questions to our amazing panelists, and really do not hesitate to take the floor. I think the idea is really to also to see what is your perspective, what kind of questions you want to ask us. So now let's move already to a first set of questions. So we'll start with Nana Louise. Microsoft has launched several upskilling, reskilling, skilling initiatives in Europe across the past years, across the past month. And now it's a challenge. How do you balance rapid AI deployment, what we've seen, in the past years, with inclusiveness and trust building in the workforce? Yes, please first pick up a mic. It should be working.
Is it on?
Yes.
No, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and I really enjoyed the other remarks, both from Karen and from Minsato. And we also, like Minsato said, had a breakfast before. I think if you look at what Europe need to get right, it's really all about competitiveness and security and defense. And I think for both areas, it's very important that we skill our workforce and our people, because neither the workforce, neither the companies that need the workforce, nor so the labor market, nor the bad actors are going to wait. They're going to move forward. And why is skilling important for competitiveness? Maybe it's obvious for people in this room, but we are going through a massive technological revolution, and it will impact how we live, how we work. And actually, history has shown that when we're going through these technology revolutions, there is really two things for competitiveness that is essential. One is how fast and profound we're able to diffuse and adopt this technology in everything we do. It's not so much who built the infrastructure for the technology, who invented the technology. It's really the countries that are able to diffuse and adopt the technology. And of course, that's not possible without skilled people. So that's why it's important for competitiveness. It's important for security. I think Cecilia has mentioned this many times, that learnings from Ukraine on this. Because if we don't have skilled workforce to keep us secure and use the latest technology that the bad actors are using, then we are really in a bad position. And then I liked also what Minsato said about, making sure that our population has the skills to see when they are reading misinformation or disinformation. So those basic skills to understand that. And then maybe the last thing I want to mention is, maybe it's more like ethical or, fundamental European values around, when should we use this technology? When should we stop using this technology? And how should we use this technology? Because it should hopefully be a tool that also make us ask more questions, not think less. So that's another aspect maybe we can think about as we go along in the debate.
Thank you, Nana Louise. And I think this point really saying, maybe there will be cases where we don't need to use the technology or we don't want to use AI. And I think this is very interesting. Of course, here in Brussels, I think many of you know that we have an AI Act regulation that has been...
Do we?
Yes. And with this, we've had so many discussions lately. Since 2021 and even before that legislative proposal was published, we had a lot of questions regarding, okay, when shouldn't we use AI? And I think this is definitely something that could also contribute to those discussions when it comes to upskilling and reskilling the workforce. It's not only about helping them learn, but it's also about helping them to understand in which cases using AI is, let's say, the most important or the most useful, and in which cases actually could create challenges. So thanks a lot for this. So Rod, now we're coming to you. I think Nana Louise was saying that actually infrastructure is not always necessarily the most important point. Maybe you will disagree on this, but first I want to ask you, from your perspective, you've been working a lot on AI factories, on compute infrastructure, on trying to build actually this infrastructure from the ground up in Europe. how can AI factories, and how can we help AI factories scale when it comes to compute infrastructure, and how can we make these AI factories that we're trying to build in Europe across member states, how can we help them bridge the talent gap in Europe? So what do you do surrounding those AI factories to bridge that talent gap?
So the one thing that people seem to forget is the infrastructure is only one part of the story. You need two parts of this. One, you need the infrastructure, and two, you need people who use the infrastructure. Now, I have to doff my cap to the Commission. When they announced the AI Continent Plan in February, it was the first time I'd seen a really comprehensive plan how to roll out AI and technology through Europe across all the member states. And it had three elements to it. The first part was using the European digital innovation hubs to turn them into AI experience centers, have the AI factories located on academic and research sites, and the AI gigafactories to scale it out. So you have this concept of a flywheel. You start the people in, you have the infrastructure and startup capability, and then you have the scale. But unfortunately, the digital innovation hubs, which is a great idea, 10 months on, I've not really seen too much action move forward on it. And that really is something the Commission really needs to grasp first, in that the skills become the most important part of the story, if you like. The other interesting stat we heard earlier, somebody said, 90% of our economy is based around SMEs, but SME adoption rates on AI is 13% across Europe as a whole. Now, why is that? Largely it's because of two problems. One, the SMEs having trouble keeping the lights on because of the cost of other things, power and other things we have in our economy. But the second thing is a real shortage of skilled labor. So we really need to start seeing the member states and the Commission working together to transform and build up education plans to bring people in. As I heard earlier this morning, even just 3 weeks of training can transform somebody's knowledge of how to use the digital skills. It's not requiring people to do a 5-year course or whatever. But we also need to have a more coordinated plan for each country. So one of the things, a lesson that can be picked up from a small country like Taiwan, as an example. Taiwan is a country that's under constant threat of its future because of all sorts of geopolitical issues, as we all know and read in the press. One of the things that Taiwan grasped really early on about 4 years ago is their economy is built around engineering. And they felt a need that they need to improve the number of engineers coming through. So they launched a program to bring in 750 new PhDs in engineering every year, fully sponsored by the government, bringing in the public-private partnership, bringing in the employers like TSMC and others into that equation to build a plan for Taiwan. We really need to have that same scale on a European level, bringing the Commission, the member state, and the private enterprises together to build a plan of how we're going to reskill and reinvent our economies, moving away from an education system that's designed really for a factory generation 50, 60 years ago, moving it now in 2025 towards producing skills and technology out of people leaving school and education establishments with the skills to address our future.
So if I may actually ask a follow-up question on this. So you said, okay, we need this big plan, but how do you do it? What would you recommend? Especially, I think we have here Demosthenes from the Greek government. Like, what kind of recommendations would you give to the governments, to the European Commission, to other companies, and how to get this going, Because I think you're fully right in this assessment in saying we need that big plan. But how can we do it? And it's never easy, I think, also for member states sometimes to find the right resources, to find the right talent, to get those plans going. And then, of course, from one member state to another, you have a lot of differences in the way the workforce is trained, in the education system. So, yeah, what are your recommendations?
Well, the biggest problem, as always, is how do you eat the elephant, right? And you have to eat it small spoonfuls, right? If you can't eat it one big go. That's an old analogy that I've learned years ago. But it's really true. I think what we need to see is that an initiative where they pick one area and to get started with something. Otherwise, it becomes an insurmountable task. I heard Doris and others saying earlier today that in some of the education systems, they're putting training teachers to how to bring AI into the schools and things like that, which is a fantastic initiative. And it started on a relatively small scale. Denmark and Estonia and a few other places providing the skills to move forward. I think my advice to the member states would be to find something as a small task to get started. I had a meeting last week. I was in the UK. Victoria, it's not part of the Commission, but it's still part of Europe. Right, but I had a meeting in the UK with the First Minister of Wales, which is a small region of the UK, and they recognise they've got a gap and are looking at how do we build a college for AI. And I don't mean a university course, I mean to bring people in, and people who have fallen out the education system or whatever, and give them the opportunity to learn new skills. And that's a really small initiative that they want to kick off with a small training thing, but it can make a big impact. So I'd look to see the member states look at how can I make small impact, small steps that can get a bigger impact. Now, one of the things that's come out of the AI continent plan again is this concept of gigafactories that actually got member states to think about, well, do I need a gigafactory? And if I'm going to do one, how do I implement it? And I've seen several member states look at how they can bring that in, and have held forums with the leading companies in their country to look about, well, if we go for this concept, can you actually consume it? Do you have workload? Do you have the things to make it work? I attended one in Portugal, for example, organized by the Portuguese Development Bank that brought in 40 of the leading employers in Portugal, and it included international companies as well as local companies. And it was a great discussion. People came in, people into the meeting, but they brought everybody together to think about a common plan. So my advice would be think about how you can bring in industry into these forums and leaders, and secondly, find some small-scale projects where you can make a fast impact in a small investment.
Thanks a lot, Rod. So before I move to Timosthenis, I want to welcome on stage Gosha Nikovska, and thank you so much for. I know you had to run, from one side of Brussels to the other. I think in record time, if I'm not mistaken. And I know when we spoke, I had promised to you that usually, these kind of events are always delayed. So I was like, no worries, it's very likely you will arrive. We will not have even started. But actually, we're a bit early on the agenda. So thank you so much for running, through Brussels and for still being able to be here. We had just started the conversation. Rod already had some recommendations to you regarding digital innovation hubs and how potentially, to scale the AI excellence centers. But I'm sure we'll have the chance also to come back to this. So thanks a lot for being here. I will move back to you in just a second, but first, let's move to Timosthenis. Of course, with Greece perspective, we already got some recommendations from Rod when it comes to maybe what can member states try to do, what can the European Commission do. But I would like to get really your perspective on the key priorities for Greece when it comes to upskilling AI and getting really reskilling, upskilling at scale in Greece. And when it comes to Greece priorities, how do they align with the broader digital policy, targets that we have in the digital decade, but also when it comes to the implementation of the EU AI Act regulation? So it is, I think, a complex question. I hope you will be able to answer this. Let's see.
Okay, thank you. Just continue what was previously said. I think that we need to promote AI literacy, and to do so, we need to give incentives for businesses if they have somehow access to AI resources the best possible way in the minimum cost. And this is an area where factories, AI factories and gigafactories may have a lot to deliver to European SMEs. And it's not just the cost, it's the ecosystem that is being created around the infrastructure. So it's the companies, the universities, the SMEs, of course, the industry. And in this way, we create a specialized, preferably specialized domain of expertise, and this domain you can expand. So yes, it's a very nice idea to just first adopt a specific domain of expertise as a first implementation case, and then you can expand. But the notion is to do it not just for the SMEs, but also for the general public, for the general population. And to do so, as a government, we can adopt specific measures such as AI assistance. In Greece, for example, we have GovGR. GovGR assembles more than 2,200 digital services using a common look and feel for all citizens. And we have implemented an AI assistant that so far in the year has been used by more than 3 million sessions. by citizens. So when you do give access to citizens in government services, this is an incentive for the general population to know better the basic elements of AI. But it is important in this respect to have an AI skills framework that defines the correspondence between roles and skills. Either skills are for civil purposes or for defense purposes. You need to have such a framework. And this framework can be organized either at the national level, also at the European level. And to implement this skills framework, you need to have an alliance that brings together both government bodies, universities and research centers, and also the industry. Industry in many different respects. Cloud providers, hyperscalers, industrial, let's say, sectors such as health or defense, and also telcos as a key example. This is the way for you to promote AI literacy at a national level and also be independent of specific, I would say, also implementations and providers. This is also important at the national level. So it's important also for EU to have a very concrete strategy on getting AI resources. When you have AI literacy that you want to promote it based on your existing resources. So getting cloud resources and resources from hyperscalers is a very nice idea, and this is something that we want to get and get the best maximum out of it. But we also need to have European resources in terms of the AI factories, AI gigafactories, and ecosystems that created around, so that to have the population and the public administration have very good expertise based on these resources. So what we have done so far in Greece, yes, we want to promote AI literacy, both for the general population and public servants. And to do so, we have make the best out of our enterprise agreements with Microsoft, very strong cooperation with Google, Oracle, and also have now a new cooperation now with OpenAI. We have used it to train public servants. We have trained so far more than 9,000 public servants in AI and cloud skills. We have used Oracle to give free access to cloud and AI courses for the general population. And we have given certificates to Greek citizens based on these resources. And we also use OpenAI for our educational, I would say, system, and have some very fruitful discussion on it. So, from my understanding, what we need to do is get the best out of these very big tech companies and hyperscalers, and also build our own ecosystem either at the national or at the European level. And of course, getting ICT specialists and make them AI specialists, yes, it's something which is completely complying to the European goals. And I think that when you have public administrators using AI resources and getting training how to use them, yes, we must fully understand this is the best we can do to comply with the AI Act, which is now under implementation, I would say. So that's our strategy. That's the thing that there's a path that we follow to get the best out of our existing resources. And I think it's also very important for Europe to cooperate and exchange best practices, because we have common dilemmas, common, I would say, targets. It's very important for us to discuss them to get very fruitful insights and ways to proceed. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Demosthenes. I think on the very last point, actually, on coordination of strategies, I think Kosha will be also very well placed, I think, to speak about the role and the work of the European Commission, of the AI Office. So you're the head of unit of Unit A4, which has a role of coordination of policy and activities. So we'll be very interested in getting your views on on what the European Commission has done and what the EU has done. So of course we had earlier this year the AI continent plan with really a lot of push on AI factories, and not only that of course, but this is really one of the milestones. And Greece, for instance, is also launching a factory. A lot of member states are getting involved in those discussions and trying to launch theirs. But we also had the Apply AI strategy just a few weeks ago, with also a lot of very interesting, I would say, projects and ideas in the pipeline when it comes to different sectors. So I think the idea is really, if I understand correctly, to give Europe a leadership in AI, at least trying to catch up, and help with competitiveness of Europe as a whole. So how do these initiatives really translate in practice into skills development, particularly, for instance, for training AI in universities, in SMEs, but also with training partners, with industry in general? And what do you think should be the role of the Commission and of member states when it comes to accelerating the implementation of those AI skilling initiatives?
Well, thank you very much, and apologies for running a little bit late, but I planned my agenda myself instead of relying on AI. Much better. So indeed, currently, I think our strategy in terms of AI is complete. It's a set of these three elements. The first, of course, is the AI Act, which gives us this ecosystem of trust. Without trust, we will not have any uptake of the technology to speak of. So that's the baseline. And then we have two reinforcing elements. One is the AI Continent Action Plan, which indeed gave us the AI factories and the gigafactories. And the second element is the Apply AI strategy, which looks at the key sectors of European economy and how we can support them in the uptake of the technology. All these strategies build on what we had before, which was coordinated action plan on AI, where we asked all member states to actually look at what they are doing in this area, put all the elements together, and then we coordinated to make sure that we all move in the same direction. This action plan was concluded with in collaboration with OECD. We prepared a report some weeks ago, and this report, the findings of this report, were also part of the preparatory work for Apply AI strategy. Why I'm mentioning this? Because it actually has shown that overall in Europe we are quite advanced. We have a number of steps that have already been taken, and we are starting to see fruit of this work. And all these strategies, including at member states level, they of course had a very important pillar relating to skills and talent. And that was the same at the level of our three puzzle element for the AI strategies at European level. The AI Act has specific Article 4, relating to AI literacy for deployers and providers of AI. We then have AI Continent, which looks mostly at ensuring that we have AI expertise in Europe and proposes a number of actions, including some specific masters for in the area of AI and data management, because there is no AI without data. And our Apply AI strategy, most recent addition, that focuses on the skills that we need more largely as a society. Because of course AI is needed not only for the AI experts, but also for teachers, doctors, journalists, and other professions. All of us sitting here probably use AI, maybe not on a daily basis, but more and more often for our normal jobs, which are not necessarily technology related. So to do that, we will be soon launching an AI Skills Academy that will provide literacy trainings tailored to different professions, and within those professions, even different job profiles, to make sure that really everybody knows what AI is, how great it can be, but also being aware of whatever risks this might be bringing.
So if I may pick up on this actually on the Academy, because it's something we saw indeed and with a lot of interest, I think, when it was announced by the Commission, but we had a lot of questions actually when seeing this. So I don't know how much you can tell, but do you see it as really the Commission, doing potentially its own also trainings that it will make available, or do you see it also potentially as really having a platform where you will be able to leverage already the existing content, maybe training courses from other providers, from the industry, from universities, from research institutes? So are you able to give us a bit more details on how potentially this could work, or at least what you're exploring when it comes to launching this academy?
So the academy is really looking at ensuring content. So yes, specific courses, as I said, tailored per sectors, tailored per job profiles. That includes also some internships, so that young people can see how things are done in the real world, as well as this kind of transfer of knowledge between sectorial specialists and AI specialists, because more and more it's not enough to know about AI, you also need to understand the sector to be able to really devise the solution or train it in such a way that will be helpful. However, I was told recently that I should not use however, but it fits so well here. It is obviously a drop in the ocean. I mean, one little, as big as it is, AI Skills Academy cannot solve all problems or all issues that we have relating to this. And there is actually a lot already happening also on member states level. On our small scale, we have this network of European digital innovation hubs. Each of them has also the task of upskilling and proposing training content. So if you are in search of training of some kind immediately, I would strongly advise not to wait for our AI Skills Academy, which will be operational as of March, more or less spring this year, but go to the website of your local hub, and most likely you will be able to already find interesting content, training content there. Also, we already have a platform where anybody, including national governments, including NGOs, other organizations, can publish trainings on digital matters, digital skills and job coalition. You can publish the trainings as long as they are for free to promote them and also give more accessibility. For example, that is your goal. So there are already a lot of tools, and what we definitely don't want with the academy that it will repeat or reinvent the wheel. So it's really looking at the gaps. Currently, the gap that we see is this sectoral and job profile oriented approach, but even there, you already have some trainings, and those that exist, if we are aware of them, we'll definitely try to promote them also through the academy.
Okay, very interesting. I think we'll be definitely also waiting to see how how much more information we get maybe in the coming weeks and months. I think that Louise, you may have a reaction or comment maybe on this.
Yes, because I think you made a very important point. We have, I'm really congratulating the Commission on all these initiatives, and also in Sato what she's driving. And we have the frameworks in place now. I completely agree. And now it's up to all the rest of us to chime in and see how we can help. And I wanted to say that Microsoft launched a few months ago a new organization called Microsoft Elevate with a budget of 4 billion over the next 5 years to give teachers and others the skills and knowledge that they need. We always work with local partners. We don't go and teach ourselves. So we work with teachers unions, labor unions, governments, NGOs, because that's how you create really real impact. And one example is the EU Cybersecurity Skills Academy, where we partnered with leading learning partners association and created this educator boot camp where we are training the teachers so that they can train their pupils. Just one example from this new organization.
No, thanks a lot, and happy to discuss more maybe actually how you see Microsoft Elevate maybe a bit later. So, okay, so maybe moving back to Rod, actually. So you've been working a lot, as we mentioned, with AI, trying to help develop AI factories. I think speaking with the European Commission, but also with a lot of partners, And so in that regard, you've been working with the joint undertaking, the Euro HPC, and of course with, as I was mentioning, the European Commission. And where do you see the role really of high performance compute infrastructure when it comes, to really enabling the whole AI ecosystem and ensuring that, AI for business, but also just in general, AI for the ecosystems can be really integrated into education and workforce training. So how do you see this whole ecosystem maybe taking place?
That's a great question. And if you look at the initiative that EuroHPC has put out to use AI factories through the research sites, it's a great idea. And there's been a prototype for this already been in operation for about 3 years. GenC in France, one of the organizations behind driving education in France, launched a AI factory concept on their Zhangzhou supercomputer 3 years ago. And they learned really quickly that when they went out around the country to meet startups and organizations, that if you don't give people quick access to the technology, then you become irrelevant. And the reason for that is you have people coming up as a startup with a great idea, and they typically have got about 60 days to 90 days to get funding. Otherwise, their idea dies and they run out of money or their own support from their families to make it work. So what the GenC guys did is they listened to this, they went around the country, they listened to all the startups, and they came up with a concept through a portal where an organization could come in, can put in their idea, can say where they are in their status, and on the back of that, then go and get an access to a block of time, usually within 30 days of them putting their requested, which is a great initiative. Now, what the European Commission has done from this with EuroHPC is take this concept and decide to roll this out all over Europe. NVIDIA has been very supportive of that initiative. We've looked at how we do this. We have our own training capability from our Deep Learning Institute, which does a number of courses. We also have a load of training kits and things available online that people can download for free. In the last 12 months, we've had over 10,000 downloads by individual educators, bringing these kits to marketplace. We have 120 ambassadors based in the academic sites. Already there's 120 of them across Europe. If they become an ambassador, which is a certification program, they can teach all our courses for free with academic users. And a lot of these new startups are coming out of the academic environment. There's PhD students or people who finish their PhDs with a great idea, taking it to market. So I think this whole concept of the AI factory that's been built out there is a great idea. If you add to that then the concept, the European Digital Innovation Hubs, you really got the first two rungs on the ladder, if you like, for getting Europe to be transformed into an AI economy. And we are really fully supportive around this, and I've got to really acknowledge the work that the Commission has done to make this happen. And also the member state support, because none of this works without the member states stepping up as well. And all of the member states that have come into this concept can really see the value of this too. So it's been a great partnership moving forward. And we are, like our colleagues from Microsoft and others, are very happy to support this initiative to transform Europe's workforce.
Thanks a lot. So the ecosystem really building, from the factories to the training facilities, to of course the digital innovation hubs, the AI experience center. All this ecosystem is key, basically. Okay, so now moving to Demosthenes. From the public sector side, so we've been discussing already a little bit the public-private partnerships, but I would be interested to get a bit your perspective on what, for instance, from the perspective of the Greek government, but not only, you feel free to also expand to what you think could apply to also to other governments across Europe. How do you see the cooperation with between governments, industry, and academia, and how can it be, the most effective to ensure that we have scalable, AI training? Because as we said, now the needs are really immense. There's so much need for training, for raising awareness when it comes to AI. So how do we make it scalable and sustainable? So how do these public partnerships can work in your mind, in your opinion?
That's a very specific question, and so far has not been totally answered at the European level. So a couple of issues that are very promising. First, we can, of course, consider the case of public-private partnerships in training. So it's a government that sets the goals and which are the roles and the skills that need to be somehow provided to general population, either or to public servants. And then the universities that define the curricula, and it's the industry and of course big tech companies that offer tools that this can be served. And this is a very, I think, important domain. It's already realized. I mean, it's something that happens already, but it's not somehow very typical. It's not a very typical process. But actually, it's what happened. It's what happens at the national level, I think, in all respect. Second, and this has to be, of course, independent of specific big tech companies. I mean, this has to be a cooperation with more than one. Second, we need to have centers of excellence, that is, have academy of excellence in specific domains for the government. And in this case, you can have just a single stack that you can adopt and invest on. And in this case, we can have, of course, a very good cooperation with the private sector and be very specific in the domain that we choose. So, for example, we can choose the domain of health or education, but this is something that can be very, very specific. And of course, when we do so, this can be a very promising European strategy, a very European strategy that we can share with our partners at the European level if we succeed in this respect. Third, there's the case of sovereignty. We can have very good examples of public-private partnerships in training, but also in respect to sovereignty. So using sovereign infrastructure and resources, something that can use not only to get AI training, but also to promote sovereignty in Europe. I think this is very important. And fourth is the case of sandboxes. Regulatory sandboxes are very important. I think that we need to be able to test and run applications and experiment with sandboxes. And this is very important, not only for public sector, but also, of course, for the whole business sector or at the national level. And this fourth area of cooperation that we can promote. I think this can also be a best practice that we can share with our partners in Europe. So these are, I think, important cases of cooperation with the private sector. But I do think again that we do need to do it in cooperation and also following some directives from at the European level, not only in terms of regulatory aspects such as the AI Act. And personally, I used to be a member of the AI board till now, but I think this is very important. But I think it's a matter of policy and also a matter of guidelines and strategy that we need to have somehow adopted at the European level. These are my remarks on this issue so far, and perhaps I'll add something more specific if there's available time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Just to mention actually on the AI board, for those who don't know, it's basically the coordination body at European level, which is trying to help the implementation of the EU AI Act regulation. So with all member states, with the European Commission, and with a lot of different subgroups to coordinate on the many different aspects of the AI Act, and one of them being, of course, AI literacy. So I think you already touched upon a lot of different topics, including the diversity of providers, the importance of sandboxes, the role also of sovereignty or having control also about the infrastructure.
Yes. May I add, there is a mutual, I would say, role between cloud and AI technologies. This is a mutual, I would say, interest on both types of technologies that Europe has to face.
Definitely, yes. And I think this is a good transition to Gosha. And I want to say also we will be taking questions very soon as well, a few questions. So please gear up if you have any questions and be prepared to raise your hands. But Gosha, maybe just quickly if you can. So we know that Europe is trying to develop a trustworthy and competitive AI ecosystem. We were just discussing, of course, the ecosystem with the digital innovation hubs, with the AI factories. And it's not just about technical talent, but technical talent is, of course, extremely important. But how do you see, you know, as the Commission, how to embed AI literacy also in multidisciplinary skills? So, you know, also including ethics, compliance, especially with the EU AI Act regulation, but also sector-specific knowledge. So how do you see this need not to have only, you know, AI engineers, but when we're talking about literacy and AI skills, AI competencies, it is much broader than this.
Indeed. So Article 4 of the AI Act puts directly, the current Article 4, I should say, puts directly the requirements on deployers and providers of AI systems and models to ensure that their employees have the not specified level of AI literacy. This has been something that my team has been tasked with then implementing in practice. And it, of course, is a complex issue because there is no clear definition what AI literacy means. We have also seen always our role as going beyond only the AI providers and deployers because we believe that everybody needs a basic level of AI literacy, and that was taken on board partially through the project of AI Skills Academy, that we aim to address it on a practical level. But we have also launched, and that goes nicely back to the point on coordination and collaboration also with industry. We have launched a repository of AI literacy practices in companies and in public sector organization. And already you can find there a high number, I think now over 40 practices of how companies are dealing with this requirement. And there are some nice and innovative ideas from trainings to everybody, to kind of discussion groups where colleagues can discuss various issues related to developing AI system for the needs of the company, to podcasts, to different types of approaches that help all colleagues in a company or in a public sector administration, because we also have very progressive public administrations already going ahead with this type of trainings. And we are definitely going to promote such type of, let's say, exchange of information and what is already available more. And at this stage, I think it is really a good idea forward. If you don't know how to approach all this AI literacy business, where to start, this repository is definitely a good starting point. And also, I will go back to the European Digital Innovation Hubs, but there are also other initiatives that also help with this area already today. So even if you are a micro enterprise, a hairdresser, but interested in how AI can support you, you can already find this type of basic training online for your needs, very often also already in the language. And if not, I encourage you to go to your local European Digital Innovation Hub.
Thanks a lot, Kosha. So we are now going to open the floor for questions. So I don't know if you have any questions. I don't see questions yet in the room. Do not be shy. Yes, perfect. One there.
Salvatore Negro, the CEO of Junior Achievement, JA Europe. So many of you have talked about teachers and how we need to scale also this channel in order to reach to the next generation. And there are many tools that you have put on the table. Today we have 5.7 million teachers in the EU, and my mother is one of those. And she's 62 years old, and she's afraid of AI. She thinks that their job is going to become useless in the future. So more than tools, it's a mindset shift. How are you addressing that in an elevator pitch to convince the 62 years old teachers in the south of Italy?
So I think very good question, of course, because I think there's a lot of concerns with AI. So how do you address this? So who wants to take this first? Nana Luis?
I'm happy to start. I also have two parents who are teachers and same age category, a little bit older actually. So I know where you're coming from. I think we need to take an inclusive approach, not only of the elderly, but also like globally, to make sure that everyone, that this, AI revolution is benefiting everyone. We have programs for elderly as well, but I just think it's a really good point, that we are not looking at this in a narrow way with regard to who we are targeting, but also the kind of skills. And we can use AI also for other kind of education that also benefits all age groups. Since you are from Greece, I just allow me to mention the project that we did with the Greek government on cultural heritage, that we worked with the Greek government to create a digital copy of old ancient Olympia. So actually, if you go now to ancient Olympia and you look all yes, you can go there, you can put your phone up and you can see actually how all these ruins looked like back in ancient times. So it's also a way to educate ourselves about culture and history.
Yes.
I think actually the moment in time that we find ourselves in calls and underlines the importance of teachers. Because if this technology, even as simple in inverted commas, as ChatGPT, this type of chatbots, when they are used indiscriminately without any type of check or critical thinking, we know what crazy things it can produce. So I think the role of teacher is really fundamental here. And in my view, how to convince, let's say, the older generation, or it's actually comparable on how to convince a small enterprise. They also don't have time, they don't understand what is the added value. And I think that the real way is showing a real example of how it can work. And up to a point, I don't think we are 100% there. It's not yet 100%. There are a lot of added value, but a little bit all over the place. But very soon we will have really good examples. And what is great about AI, that it is simple to use. Much simpler than in the old times when you had to click 77 times to get somewhere. So I actually think your mom will be really a trailblazer in a few months using it.
And maybe also leverage the union of the elderly to say, what is it actually that they need? What are the concerns they have? Why are they scared? And then address those real concerns and really listen.
May I add something? It's all a matter of incentives. If you show them the benefits, as you just said, you show them what AI can do, like the smartphone. I think it's the time that they may somehow the time that can be decreased to get educational material prepared, or I think it's the friendliness of AI tools. If they see all this, it's just the message that they need for them to use AI. And I think it's very important that after a while, teachers, and not only teachers, may have to be educated on what not to do with AI and which are the areas that they cannot educate their students on, because that's also a very important issue, how get the benefits of AI and not be involved in all these hazardous areas that everybody here knows that they exist.
And I think the idea is really also to augment the capacities, of teachers and other people, rather than, of course, replace. And I think this is what is very important, to really have AI as a support tool, as an assistant. And I think this is the mindset we need to look at, and that's why raising awareness and upskilling and reskilling is extremely important in that case. So do we have another question in the room? Yes, there. And I think that will be our final question, if I'm not mistaken.
My name is Aman, and I have my startup company, and I'm also a cybersecurity graduate. So my question is regarding the AI. So what we are seeing around the world, all the companies, the government are in the race of AI with with advanced AI, but they're lacking of the security. Like they are the security is their second priority, but the development and the business of the AI is the first priority. As you can see, every year or every month, we see a lot of attacks used by the right now, mostly with the agentic AI, and also with the data leakage that we see, like just a month ago, 16 terabyte of data was leaked of around 4 billion users' information, including password, and now which is being used through the AI for mostly for the phishing. And so my question is we are racing for the better AI, but lacking and we're going behind in the security.
Thanks a lot. And I think you're making also an excellent transition to the next panel, which will be actually on security and cybersecurity skills. So thank you for this. So, okay, who wants to answer this question? It is the fact that you have, of course, a lot of positive uses of AI, but we need also the skills to fight potentially the malicious uses of AI, of course, and there's a lot of them. And I think that was mentioned earlier by our previous speakers, the fact that you have a lot of malwares that are being developed by AI in just a few minutes, when before it would have taken sometimes days. So who wants to take this one on the skills when it comes more to AI security and fighting against threats?
I'm happy to answer because you are absolutely right. There's no security without the cloud. We saw that in Ukraine, and there's no security without AI because the bad actors, they are using AI. And I think it was a very interesting comment somebody made around, I think that was Karen. You just need one success as a bad actor, but as a defender, you need to be right every time. In Ukraine, Microsoft is partnering with the government to share threat intelligence so that they can be warned when a new cyber attack is coming. And what we are seeing now is that Russians are very good at integrating AI in their sophisticated attacks, both cyber attacks, but also misinformation campaigns. And so we need people with those skills who can help us stay secure from that perspective as well.
If I may, I think that actually brings us nicely to one of the question words that you said, this multidisciplinarity, because I think the way the world is going nowadays, we will be less and less silos, including in education, and more interdisciplinary. So while we are mostly talking about the positive aspects of AI, it does not mean that the, let's say, cyber issues are being neglected, because the developments go indeed hand in hand on the good side and on the not so good side. So I wouldn't kind of worry overall. I don't think cybersecurity is being forgotten, but definitely with AI, it takes up speed to a completely different level. So we need really also to speed up our skills building. But I think the answer to this is actually this multidisciplinarity, interdisciplinarity in the ways forward.
Thank you, Gosha. So now I will ask all the panelists actually in 30 seconds to give me what is their takeaway message, or what is maybe if they have one bold idea how to scale, AI skills and training and education in Europe. So yeah, in just 30 seconds, you have one key message or one bold idea. I will start maybe with Rod, if you want. Sorry for catching you off guard.
So my key message would be to think about where you need to use AI and actually with what skills you need to make sure it's implemented correctly. And if you start off with thinking about it, then you could build a plan of how you're going to implement it. So take some time, think through a plan, think the areas that are most important to you, and then have a focused plan on how you're going to address it.
Thanks a lot. So Demosthenes, you have one takeaway message.
Show the benefits, reduce cost, and present best practices. That's all the key message for me.
Perfect, thanks a lot. Very short and sweet. I love this. Nada Luis and then Gosha.
In this city, we talk a lot about all the problems and how we are behind. And I think it's time to focus on where Europe is strong, our domains. So green tech, pharmaceutical, chemicals, and our people. And I think we need to infuse our domains with AI, and we need to skill our people so that they can jump on this opportunity.
Perfect.
And I would build on that. There is a lot already available, really a lot. So if you are not sure where to start, go to a European Digital Innovation Hub, and they can really guide you. A lot is available, so don't be blocked by I don't know what to do. You really can find a source of information to increase your skills, to help your company to take up the technology, to test the technology. So just go out there, and I'm sure support is available.
Thanks a lot. Thank you to all the panelists. Please give them a round of applause.
So thank you all the panelists, and thank you very much for bringing out that the more coordination between public-private sector is needed, as I saw from here. And thanks for the practical ideas, the very practical ideas that you brought out. And I think it's only fair that after this kind of very intense discussion and practical ideas, we will give you, dear audience, a chance to power up a little bit, to elaborate those ideas, to discuss it with each other. So now we have a coffee break, and please be back here sharply 12:15, so when we start with our next session. Thank you. I know that and the breaks are always too short when you're together with good people. There is a challenge with that. But hopefully everybody reaching to the room because the topics are more interesting and interesting, as promised and already spoken in the last panel, that they started to speak a little bit about cybersecurity and the threats and how different technologies are coming together and do we have the right skills for that. And so in the next panel, we will speak about digital shield. Cybersecurity and defense resilience depend heavily on readiness of our people, our talents, our education system. And yes, here Europe faces a critical shortage of cyber professionals. And what we can do there and what can be done together in the cooperation with public and private sectors. So our second panel explores how to build the skilled digital force Europe needs. And now I would like to invite to the stage our next panel moderator. I would say that the safest guy in digital Europe. So Konstantinos, please come to the stage and introduce the speakers.
Thank you, Doris, and welcome all to the second and final panel. I would like to invite my panelists. I'm very excited. Benedita Berti, Nina Olesen, Karen Masian, and Ricardo Paperis. I will introduce you properly in a while. So, what I will do, yes, thanks. Allow me to take advantage of me being a moderator to set a bit the scene. So I'm Konstantinos Hadjisavas. I'm the Director for Digital Resilience and Defense. And to be honest, the diversity of our panelists is excellent because we will discuss about these challenges in cyber security. And I think what you will bring here is a different perspective. And this is the beauty. I would like also to echo you, Karen, when you was telling that cyber resilience goes beyond being only a technology problem. It is also a human problem, and it's about skills. It takes only one link in Instagram that you click, and then you are the one that you are responsible, that your system, your organization is collapsed, and there is an issue. Another thing that I would like to bring on the table when we will discuss is this risk that we all are afraid that one day we will be replaced by AI-enabled systems. I think this is not the risk. The risk is that we will be replaced by those that they will have the knowledge and the skills how to use the AI-enabled systems. And even bigger risk is that I will say many times, we will end up in many years to have smart systems, but we will not have the right people to use them. I mean, everybody, we buy very expensive mobiles, and I'm not sure how much percentage of the functions they offer we can use. So this is another thing I want to bring on the table. Another point that I think is important to discuss is about women, that they account less than 20% of IT specialists. I think we need to discuss how we can address this risk. And then I will not say more because we have discussion to do. So I will start with Betty. Yes. So you have been really involved in NATO so many years. And I think you are quite guru in the field. And now, congratulations, you got a new job, Secretary General at the NATO Parliamentary Assembly. And I know you deal also with democratic resilience, apparently. So tell us, how do you see hybrid threats evolving in this landscape? And which skills do you think we should prioritize to be able to address them?
Thank you. Great. Okay. Thank you very much for the question, and it's great to be here with everyone. If I understood the rules of the game correctly, we are supposed to be quite short, so I shall be quite short. But the question bears itself. The question is a pretty complex one. Hybrid, essentially. What are we talking about? 50 people in the room will probably have 50 different definitions of what is hybrid, which is in itself a problem. But let me maybe just try by saying, I believe we live in a most complex, most dangerous security environment for Europe since the end of the Cold War, if not earlier. And we are faced with simultaneous threats and challenges. Our adversaries and competitors use both kinetic and non-kinetic tools to undermine our security and defense. All of this may seem obvious, but the point that I'm getting at is we tend to think about hybrid as a separate box, completely distinct from the more kinetic, from the more high intensity level of attacks and tactics. What I'm trying to say is our adversaries and competitors, if I take the Russian Federation's doctrines, they do not see that difference. Their concept of war, unrestricted warfare, is essentially we shall use every single tool that is effective to undermine the security and cohesion of our adversaries. So just to see, we should see it on a spectrum. It's not as if hybrid, non-kinetic, non-lethal force tactics should be treated or seen differently. In my view, they're all part of the same destabilizing pattern that our adversaries and competitors are using with respect to our societies, to our democracy, to our security, and to our way of life. So that's the first point. Then, if I look at what is this black box of hybrid, I would say it really boils down to the use of all non-military instruments of power in a way to undermine our security. So a few years ago when we had these discussions, it was very theoretical. Today, I really don't have to explain to you because all you have to do is open a newspaper. Sabotage of military facilities. Yes. Political assassination. We see that. Drone incursions into our own airspace. We see that. Daily cyber attacks against not just our private sector, not just our public sector, but broadly in our as a feature, not a bug of what security looks like these days. These are all hybrid tactics, right? Undersea cables, incredibly important for our security, for our economy, for the connectivity, for our connectivity. Those are also being under attack time and time again, especially in recent years. Energy blackmail. After 2022 and the beginning of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, we saw how one-sided dependency on Russian oil and gas was utilized by Russia to try to undermine our ability to support Ukraine. Economic vulnerabilities. If we depend solely or primarily on potential competitors when it comes to rare earth minerals, magnets, or other absolutely essential part and parcel of how we build an industrial base, well, that's also a dependency that can be weaponized and used against us. So hybrid tactics is really this big word that means nothing and everything. And I would just say, I would think about it as part of the non-kinetic active campaign, active warfare to destabilize us. So that's the first side. What do we do about it? You asked me, right? You will start making a sign when I have to stop talking, and I will do that.
So far, I enjoy it.
So far, so good. It's good to have real-time feedback. In terms of what do we do about it, and I'll get to the cyber part, but because you asked me about the entire hybrid repertoire, it is not just a cybersecurity or a cyber defense issue. It's really part of a broader strategy of deterrence writ large. As NATO deterrence, the strategy of deterrence that we've had so far relies firstly on the concept of deterrence by denial. That's essentially resiliency. How do you stop your adversary from attacking you? By increasing your own security, by boosting your own defenses. This is particularly germane. This conversation is particularly important in cyberspace because we talk about cyberspace as contested at all times. In other words, it's not really about deterring attacks or preventing competitors from being in our being in our networks because they are already there. So contested at all time. It's not a peacetime environment, cyberspace. It hasn't been for years. But component of how do we build resilience is, how do we build deterrence is resilience. And we're doing a lot of this as Europeans. in terms of our critical infrastructure, in terms of diversifying our dependency, de-risking. All of that is really, really important. And it's half, and I would say it's half of the mission. The other half, and then I'll close, is deterrence relies traditionally on messaging to your adversary that they shouldn't really try to attack you because either it's too hard, and that's resilience, or there's going to be a price, and that's deterrence by punishment. This second area of deterrence, which is imposing cost on the adversary, it's the part where, in my opinion, we need to work more. We need to be much more forward-leaning, forward defense when it comes to detecting and responding to hybrid threats. What I mean specifically is if the adversary knows that the price for massive DDoS attacks or for shutting down one of our undersea cables or for blowing up a weapon depot in one of our countries, if the price of that is only a political statement, I don't think that's enough to change the calculus of the opponent. So if we only build resilience, but we don't invest on also creating strategic dilemma and putting a price on for these attacks, I think we're probably going to be in for a very unstable period. So that would be my assessment.
Thank you. And I understand this is very important because we all, following the news with what is going on, not only in the Russian-Ukraine war, but also, let me highlight the Sudanese civil war. Please, also for you didn't have the time to study this war. It's also very important, also in terms of lesson learned beyond the catastrophe, but also what's happening in Middle East, in China, South Sea with the hybrid warfare. I like the fact that you set the scene, Bertie, in this way about the hybrid warfare, this combination of asymmetrical and conventional means. I want to remind you, 3 years ago when Russia invaded in Ukraine, the first days of the war, there was a deep fake video of Zelensky that he was inviting his soldiers to surrender. And the video was very bad because the technology was not good at that time, but there were many that believed him. So resilience is not just a concept that it's only about weapons, that it is, but it's also about understanding the technology of your opponent. And then I will come to you, Nina, because, you are the Chief Growth Officer at the European Cyber Security Organization, and you can bring your perspective, but I will also take the advantage that you are the Chief Operating Officer for the Women for Cyber Foundation. So you will bring us also this dimension of how can balance the gender issue. And my question to you is, building on what Benedetta said, what are the lessons learned that you can bring to us when it comes to skills and awareness? I think this is 2 dimensions that they go hand by hand. And then how can this be applied to the SMEs and the public?
Thank you, Konstantinos, and thank you to Digital Europe for the invitation. So I've actually been with EXO since day one, so it's kind of interesting working on skills as well as a topic, seeing its evolution, because in the early days, when I started 2016, it wasn't really a hot topic, let's say. Then it grew and grew and got firmly on the agenda, and now I feel like it's dipping a little bit. I think that what I've seen, thank you so much, sorry. What I've seen is that I believe that we need to be looking at skills and awareness linked to that as a fundamental strategic imperative for strengthening cyber resilience. It cannot be an afterthought. It cannot be a nice to have. It really is a must have. And we've stated as much actually in our recent strategic vision document, Cybersecurity 2030, because we believe that, Europe's ambition to lead in cybersecurity needs to be matched by its ability to retain homegrown talent, to attract global experts as well. But this requires not only an ecosystem approach of connecting education, industry, and policymakers and so on, it requires a multi-layered strategy. Really looking at effective competence development, lifelong learning, looking at governance issues as well, and looking at inclusivity. increasingly. So I always say as well, just to mention, we talk a lot about the skills gap, which for me is not the same as a workforce gap. A workforce gap for me would be more related to the quantifiable number of unfilled positions, for instance, which we know that we have. Skills gap, I'm a bit less sure of. I would call it more skills and competence development gap, transferability gap. I think we need to be better at working together, again, in public-private partnership, to develop agile and efficient mechanisms to onboard talent and place them in positions. I mean, I will give you an example. So EXO works very closely with Women for Cyber, obviously, because Women for Cyber, it's not just a women's initiative. It's about bringing more women into the field, absolutely. But it's really about, again, equipping Europe with the needed skills to be able to face the future threats. And women have a crucial role to play in that. But we work with EXO and Women for Cyber. We work on, of course, the strategy behind, but we also have hands-on activities, and we have a platform, Road to Cyber, which is a kind of one-stop shop platform that kind of complements the Digital Skills and Jobs Academy a little bit in its approach, but we're really looking at connecting job seekers, learners with employers. And I want to give you an example. Road to Cyber, we have a talent pool, an anonymized talent pool behind, which also includes a compartment on internship seekers specifically. We have over 1,200 seekers right now, and it's growing organically every week, and we're struggling to place them in jobs, in positions, in internships. So what's going on there? Because at the same time, I talk to industry, and they need the experts. So I think we need to also be looking at what I've learned, some of our lessons learned is, I would say, focus more on skills-based hiring. Hire on the basis of observable abilities, rather than a menu list of certifications and this and the other. That can really create bottlenecks, I think, a lot for entry-level positions, especially. I'm not saying certifications are good. There's a lot of increasingly also entry-level certifications that I think we should pay attention to. Micro-credentialing is important as well. But yeah, I think that there's a huge barrier there to actually be able to, like, the people are there and they want to join the sector. So I would say that there's some more work to do in that respect. And I also think that, for instance, something like simulation-based cyber range exercise environments are very important for this, because not only do they accelerate readiness of existing cybersecurity teams, but they are a really agile and efficient way of building up skills, competence of experts at all levels. So I think that that's something we should look at too. And then, of course, on the diversity dimension, I mean, again, like I could say a lot about that. Also how Women for Cyber has grown in its approach, becoming much more strategic now, also becoming more about the workforce capacity building story of what we can do to help equip, like I said, Europe with the needed skills. It's not just a DEI initiative. It's not good to be a DEI initiative these days anyway, so it's probably good to frame it in a different way. But I really want to, point out that this is an initiative where we work with women and men, and we have a lot of male ambassadors and mentors and so on in our mentorship program, which is very important, I think, because we need everyone on board. Otherwise, we're not going to make it, and we won't fill the gap.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're talking, and I will come back to this, the whole society engagement. But before we go, I intended to ask you, how is the comparison between Europe and the US? Do you have any with this gap in the skills and how we choose? Are we really behind, or?
Well, I mean, there are different numbers out there. We have struggled for a while now. We don't have a lot of significant data for Europe. We know that there are workforce studies out there like ISC2 that do their annual workforce study, and there's sort of a part on Europe in that. So that's one of the things we've been trying to do with EXO Women for Cyber for a few years as well, is to try and can we build up some surveys to understand what the situation is. But it's incredibly difficult to quantify. I couldn't even give you a number, but I do think that the US is ahead in terms of, again, the way that their own systems, educational systems, governance works in terms of onboarding and talent and equipping, the different regions, states, and all that with the needed workforce. So I think that they've always been a little bit faster. We tend to be a bit slower in Europe.
Yeah,
to be honest.
it is a big issue also in defense. I mean, we see this around 64% of the equipment in Europe comes from the United States, which shows the strategic dependency. But now I will come to you, Karen. We have listened to your keynote speech, and I was trying to avoid repeating
I promise not to repeat.
So I know you have a deep understanding. I study your LinkedIn with my team. And I saw you have a deep understanding of public affairs. And so
you're stalking me.
So yes, you know AI. So what I wanted to ask is, you work in Google, and there is a lot of expertise in large-scale digital skills and cyber training. So maybe you can bring here your thoughts. How can we really build these cyber skills from this perspective, being involved in this domain?
Well, actually, I was just talking about it just during the coffee break. And it's an incredibly, vast task, because we need to target basically the children we know which are at school, to equip them. We need to target the university to make sure that, they have the students, they have this learning. And then we need people like us. I don't know, I still have about 18 years to work, according to Belgian retirement. And I need to upskill myself, and I'm lucky that I Google, I can only upskill, otherwise I'm in trouble. But, but it's about how you do that, because, I am working full time, and then, I need to upskill myself on the side. And we have at Google, we work with the #1 online university platform called Coursera. And we have developed from like short-term to mid-term programs where you can learn about the basics of AI, cybersecurity, up to like very advanced level. And we give it for free. You only to register, like for €30. But the question is, like from all our programs, everything we spoke, it's about how you make the difference, about reaching, to thousands of people, to actually addressing the 450 million people that we have in Europe. And that's really the challenge there, is about how you make it, work. And there is another thing that, and I will join what Benedetta was saying, is that it's the prevention. Of course, prevention is the best, like when you get out of the people, it's like, what are the infrastructures? And it is true that, company like ours and a lot of companies, if we provide infrastructure which is cyber secure, then obviously you cannot have, the bad actors to come, which is very helpful. So this is very important. But you do that into the products as well, and then we have to work all together. And this is why, this idea of having very much an open security, interoperability between our products, sharing the knowledge is very important. And then the last bit I wanted to say as well was what you were saying, Nina, about the public-private partnership. At the moment, it's not worth robbing a bank. You just do basically a cyber scam, and everybody, like your parent, I don't know, my mother is the one who gets robbed the most, I don't know, honestly. And, you get stolen €10, €50, and you're like, oh, bugger, like the bank is going to reimburse you. But actually, this is the organized criminality globally, which is behind that. And they earn hundreds of millions, and it's actually amazingly efficient. And this is why this public-private partnership is very important, because, it's about sharing the intelligence, but it's also acting together. So the problem we have is that our agencies, public agencies, they don't have the means. I mean, these scams are happening like millions of times per day, globally, and they don't have the means to go and do a legal case after the people. And so I'll give you an example. We've done that against a Chinese company who was very kindly providing a phishing website where you can just go and market it and then do it. And these people have stolen about 450 million euros, and we stopped them legally. And this is a kind of all of us working together, because of course we can protect, but it's much better if we go after the people, which are doing the bad stuff, to actually stop them doing it. Because as you said, Benedetta, deterrence, they need to feel it, otherwise, it's always up to us to have to up our game, and then the others, they don't have much to lose, basically. And then the last bit I wanted to say, which is very important, is that we're talking about today's cybersecurity, but we need to know that quantum, which is coming, is going to completely basically break through, the current cyber standards. So we're already working on the post-quantum encryption and making sure that we can really protect, the next generation. And this is why we feel things like, having the customer who control the keys is very, very efficient. It's actually more efficient than data localization. So it's about thinking about the game of the future as well.
It's very interesting because I cannot avoid, my DNA is in defense, and I cannot avoid to apply what you have said also in the battlefield. I mean, we have seen what is happening in the war with Ukraine and Russia, and traditional defense systems, tanks, frigates, we were supposed to be the critical factors for winning very fast the war. But we realized that simple technologies, robotic dogs, secure connectivity, things that we couldn't imagine, they are now responsible for winning the war. You see a drone of €1,000 that can cause a big damage in a critical energy infrastructure, which takes days to recover, and etc. And then the paradox is that you need to use a very expensive systems to neutralize this very cheap drone. And it's the same. Here, there are advanced technologies, phishing emails or whatever, that they can cause a lot of compromise and damage. And I will come back to this, but I would like also to take the advantage for you, Ricardo, being working in Mars Power Group, and I have seen in your website a very interesting figure. 74% of employees are facing a talent shortage. In other words, they cannot find the people they need. And we have a lot of trainees in our Digital Europe sometimes complaining they cannot find a job. 74% it's a shortage. Start looking the right job and what you need to do. So,
thank you for this question. To answer to the trainee first.
Yes.
I think that I am more on the side of Nina that mentioned before about this balance between supply and demand, because especially in the cybersecurity skills, what we see as Manpower Group is something that is happening structurally in the labor market, in the cybersecurity space, is extremely amplified. What we'll see is a structural change in which the speed of the obsolescence of the skills is becoming very, very fast. In all the sector, and in cybersecurity, Karen has just mentioned the quantum coming, and so we are thinking to be prepared to cloud, and we are already to imagine that in a few years, those skills will be obsolete. So I think that the first element to consider when we talk about cybersecurity is that the cycle of the skills are very short now, as the economic cycles are very short now. So the model that I grew up with, you study, you work, and you retire, is that. And you have to reinvent yourself along the way. And this is why there is sometimes, I'm sorry for the pension retirement age. You should have been already aware, but if not, it's a wild moment this morning. Anyway, so I think that this is the element that we should consider. The fact that in cybersecurity are the first step, but we are already into this trend that is here to stay. When you look at the cybersecurity with our brand experience, this brand that is focused on the IT skills, we have a CIO report that I invite you to download from our website. It's clear that many CIO are trying to solve a problem that they don't understand. When you look at the numbers, because if you apply, would you apply to a job description of a cybersecurity employee? Look at the job description of today. They are very complex, very traditional, a mix of everything. So those people don't exist. Nobody applies. So the real point is to understand, as I think it was already mentioned by Nina, we should think about the skills, not about the job role. If you think about the job role, you don't apply, and the companies are without the people and the skills that they need. This is why the Draghi document is not talking about jobs, it's talking about skills and competencies. That is the new coin for the future. And this is in cybersecurity, I think, the new element in town that we have to deal with. What we see as experience and as Manpower Group as a whole is, one, the job description has to be completely default at the service of the skills and not the job title.
The second, that is a trend that already started in the US, but already many companies in Europe are taking, they are not interested anymore in the degrees. They are interested in which is the experience that people did and learnability for future skills. So I don't want to say goodbye curriculum, but 60% of the HR don't believe anymore in the CVs. It means that they want to meet people, they want to understand what they can learn, and they want to understand what they can learn fast. This is why they are moving from degrees to vertical training, the famous academies of 1 month, 2 months. And this morning has been even remembered by the president of Digital Europe, about 70% of pilots in Ukraine are women that learn this in 2 weeks. This is a trend that is here to stay. The last one that I want to mention that I think will be very important for cybersecurity, if you enter in the mood that the skill is relevant and not the job, then you start to think about the adjacent skills that can be transferable to at the service of cybersecurity. Is happening already in defense. It happened already in the Second World War, by the way, but it's happening again that many skills of automotive are now thought at the service of the new need of the aerospace and defense. So we just need to stop to plan it in a tactical way and to think a little bit more strategically to stop it, because those are trends that are here to stay. And at the moment, we don't see yet some structural answer. This is why this Digital Europe initiative is good, because the only thing to have a strategic thinking is to start to discuss. Then you have a strategic thinking, and then maybe you can plan. So this is how we see at the moment the skills.
Thank you, Roberto. And I think there are a lot of thoughts here that we need to reflect and digest. And I come more and more being convinced that indeed in the future we will not be afraid to be replaced by AI systems, but by those that they will have the skills to use the AI system. Because at the very end, you need a human being to operate it.
If I may, this is why it's so important also to talk about the soft skills or internal skills, critical thinking. All the studies are showing that more we go into AI and digital skills, and more when we will be at the next level of AI, that is not just doing cheaper and faster, but is co-create. The co-creation of AI will need critical thinking, process-driven mindset. So interdisciplinary skills that would be much more relevant than paper on something that has been studied in silos.
No, but it's good because this means upskilling and reskilling, which is very important. And the armed forces, I have seen that slowly they integrate this because they realize some professions, some roles are not any longer relevant. But I will go now to the second round, and here we will change the rules of the game, and we will reduce a bit the time of your responses. So we give some time for questions, if you agree. And Benedetta, I want to come back to you and with your experience, do you think the European Union and NATO, they can work together? And if yes, can we build what we call cyber readiness? You can tell us a bit, for those that are not familiar, what we mean by this.
Sure, and I'll be very brief. So the short version is NATO and the European Union are working together on issues related to cyber, at least since 2017. It's been one of there's a growing area of issues where NATO and EU cooperate. Cybersecurity was identified as one of them very early on. And I would say that has translated into information sharing of best practices, continuous dialogue and interchange between the staffs of the two level, cooperation in training, in exercises. There is also an agreement that allows basically the emergency response teams from both organizations to work together and share information at the speed of relevance in response to an incident. So there's certainly things that are being done. NATO itself is quite, it would be a shock otherwise, is quite focused on the issue of cyber defense and cybersecurity. Of course, since 2016, from a NATO perspective, cyber is one of our 5 operational domains, which means when we look at how we need to deter and defend, we look at capabilities in the air, at land, at sea, in cyberspace, and in space. These are considered equivalent domain in terms of the importance. So we work there, and we work more and more on the concept of multi-domain operations, where you really try to bring effects from all these domains simultaneously. Within NATO, there's a integrated cyber center that works to ensure that our cyber operators can work together to better detect, map, and respond to malicious cyber activities and interference. There is a sort of robust strain of work that really works with individual governments, and it's about stepping up and helping them better detect, map, respond, and prevent. And then there's a lot of things, I'm keeping it very short because of the time constraint, but then there's a whole lot of training and exercising initiatives, which I think are really important. For example, NATO has the Center of Excellence for Cybersecurity in Tallinn, Estonia, that runs the largest cyber exercise in the world every year, Lock Shields. And we also have the NATO Information Agency Academy in Portugal that has trained, if I'm not mistaken, to date over 10,000 cyber defenders. So there's a lot that is happening on this particular issue. What I would say to close, and just really agree with the prior panelists, is that even though there's so much progress that's being done, I think overall, as a society, as individual countries, we still have some work to do when it comes to building security, to really understanding the concept of security by design. So to really embed security considerations very early on into how we think about our products, our cyber ecosystem writ large. And if I had to point out to one low-hanging fruit that we really need from my perspective in terms of enhancing our collective security, is better basic cyber hygiene training for employees in all companies. There's a lot that has been said that I really agree with, but I think there's still a catch-up to do, whereas we really start in certain cases from a rather low level. So first we need to at least have the basic collective cyber hygiene understanding, and I think that would help us a lot.
I think you give us the institutional, let's say, approach, but also with your last comment, you give, I think, the right way to ask Nina about the same thing, about the cyber resilience, but now from the citizen, let's say, perspective. How do you see the awareness and citizen level initiatives in strengthening the cyber resilience?
I think that the most fundamental thing for me there is to start young. When it comes to engaging the citizens, engaging youth, not just on cyber hygiene, but actually on real cybersecurity capability building. I wanted to, and it's linked to that, but just to react a little bit to the previous comments on the cybercrime side of things. One of the chairs of our skills working group mentioned to me the other day that Germany alone lost about 300 billion euros to cybercrime last year. Can you imagine what the number is for Europe collectively? And can you imagine what we could save and how we could spend some of that money on, again, capability building if we were better equipped? On top of that, I'll also say cyber criminals are equal opportunity employers. They will hire on the basis of observable abilities that I was mentioning earlier. So I think we need to respond accordingly. And one of the things that we do, and here I link it back to the youth engagement, is that we're supporting an initiative called the Hacking Games. And the Hacking Games is really focused on building up the future generation of ethical hackers. And they do that by focusing actually predominantly on the gaming community, and from early teens to all the way up to 26 years old. Because if we don't get them then, the cyber criminals will. They go in the chat forums of the games, and they will recruit there. And so I think that would be my main message, is to start early and really think in an end-to-end approach, that it starts with early engagement, and it starts with also looking beyond our traditional pipelines, unconventional talent, and so on. That's what I would mention.
A little bit disruptiveness also.
Yeah,
in this.
absolutely. I always want to be a bit provocative in that sense. Okay.
And Karen, what do you think about this? Also, if you can bring the public-private cooperation. Very much.
Actually, I wanted to rebound into what you were saying, Ina, since we're making a dialogue. I mean, I completely agree that actually when you have a crisis, it's what you were alluding before, you basically suddenly, react and uplift. I mean, we saw that during the COVID, when everybody had to go online, suddenly I'm like, ooh, how do we do that, And I think, Ukraine is actually a good example, not only on the drone level, but actually it's a huge workforce of cybersecurity experts. And they had to develop that because, they had no means. They had to shift all their government online, protected because they had no choice. They had to protect as well all their cloud. So, I mean, very interesting, like, when you have to, it's you suddenly, make it work quite fast. And I think, to a certain extent, what, it's great opportunity as well for take the lesson and learn from that. In terms of the partnership, I mean, I think we've spoken quite a lot about that, but we, beside the fact that I learned that I have to work, I can't retire and I have to upskill forever. I think what we see is that there is really, you have to do B2B, B2C, which is what we're trying to do what we really believe is this train-the-trainer approach, like you have to be able to scale and you have to do it into the local language. You have to do it, with the local partners who understand, the local situation. So having this multiplier effect is really, really important. So this is why we do things on our own, but we also do things, together with like partners like IMCO, where they go and find the people who are, into a situation of need or people into reskill, and then, they give them the capacity to do that. And I think that's very important. I agree with you, Nina, that we need to be inclusive as well. And we can't have a society that is split, between like the people who get it and people who don't. So I think that's the kind of things that are very important.
Thank you, Roberto. Back to you, and this question of the workforce transformation. Can you tell us a bit about the employer's role and some examples, for instance, because I know you recently are responsible also about France, so maybe you can give us some examples.
Yeah, I think that in this situation, the complexity that the employers have to face require a completely different answer. What we see today are companies that are really trying to rethink their workforce strategies. And they are using what we call in Manpower Group the 4B: buy, build, borrow, and bridge. So a model in which, according to the definition of which are the skills that are really strategic for a company and which are the more tactical, a workforce strategy can generate, okay, those are the skills that I need to have internally, and so to do an internal skill map to understand who are the people to invest, because maybe companies cannot invest in all the employees. They have to decide which one have the possibility to have upskilling and reskilling program. In other cases, it's about to have tactical borrow activities on external skills that can be useful for a while. In other cases, could be bridges, so moving people. What we see already in many companies, horizontal movement are much more frequent than in the past, and this is exactly the companies that are trying to create these holistic competencies that are transversal. The companies are doing much more horizontal movement. Okay, employees don't like too much horizontal movement, but this is the new game that we need to deal with. And of course, as I mentioned already, the academies is one of the biggest answers, because those are waiting for the educational system to be up to speed with the business needs a little bit faster. Let's put it in this polite way. Academies are the right answer for having vertical knowledge for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks that can generate what the company needs. It could be a learnability element for the employees. One of the things that we discussed this morning was also how to certificate and standardize those competencies, because someone works for Manpower for 6 months. It's a pity that we invested a lot in their training, and this training cannot be part of a valuable curriculum in the future. So how much the European community can generate standard, open badge certification that can generate a much more agile and inclusive, at that point, labor market is what we see and what we are working for.
Thank you. I will not react because I want to give the floor for some questions. Everybody's hungry, yes? Yes, we have one question, please.
try always to break the ice. Again, Salvatore Negro is CEO of J Europe. So we train about 7.5 million young people every year across 40 European countries, many in digital skills and in partnership, for instance, with Manpower Group. But those young people, and I put here not my mother, but my son. So they didn't see or know very much about the Second World War. They didn't live in the Cold War. They didn't see the fall of Berlin Wall. They didn't see what September 11 happened, and they didn't do the military obligatory service. However, they are under all those threats. But my sense is that they do not feel it. Yes, you're seeing it on the TV and what's happening in Ukraine, but my son lives in the southeast of Spain, and it's quite far from the other side of Europe. Maybe if he was in Riga or Vilnius, maybe it would have been different perception, of course, but generally, I don't feel that they understand that there is this fear of a war, and even less of a cyber war. Do we need another pandemic like COVID transposed into a major breakthrough in Europe, in which then they will not be able to go and pay, they will not be able to play on their game because there is no electricity because of a cyber attack, to wake them up?
Thank you. We can also use this for a new movie in Netflix. But any other question? I will collect 3 questions, and then I will give you the floor for 1 minute, because they will punish me because they want to go for lunch. Okay.
Yeah, hello.
Please, quick question and to your name.
It's just similar questions with all these people. So the problem that I see, like whenever we use the cybersecurity terms, we always use a term awareness that I didn't heard today. So my question is, normally in the Europe or in the Belgium, from the last year till now, the phishing scam is increased by almost tripled, and especially not from the teens, but from the old age. And there is a government camping from the Belgium, but we don't see that is more effective, because it is increasing day by day or month by month. And also from the business perspective, the business do have the security, but if you go to the small business, they don't have a proper cyber security kit, or even they do have, they have like a basic cyber security kit. But most of the attacks from the business is not through the company, but through the employee or through the clients they have, like in the hotels. So how the government is like using the camping that is already running, and how it will affect the future.
Okay. And any last question? Okay, I think we can go very quickly to address. Maybe I start with. Okay, please.
I think if we shut down the internet, the kids, they wake up. No, but listen, I also have 2 teenagers who, every time I talk to them that, this is what I heard at work, like 70% of the kids, get like sexual pictures, or you can get scammed, or you get actually attackers on games. And like, of course, Mama, I know, like, what do you think? So, I mean, it's just like, I think they are, to a certain extent, much more savvy than, us. But I agree with you that they live in a very much comfortable, so they don't understand. I mean, as a disclaimer, my son told me I work too much, and my generation is crazy. So I basically, I look forward to them experiencing a bit of life, out of our coziness family, so that they actually see that. And I think this is going to come, but I agree with you that they see it from a very relaxed mindset, and I think they're going to be confronted with that, quite soon. And I'm very interested, since I have to choose universities, I need to discuss about what skills I need to develop. And I think on your second question, I mean the scams. I mean the scams are amazingly increasing, and in a way, I'll give you an example. But we work with banks like HSBC, and we use our AI model to basically screen your habits. So like they know what is your normal habits, and if they detect that something is going out of the normal, basically they send a flag to the bank who can actually flag it to you. This is basically one of the way we have to work. We have to be outsmarting basically the scams, because as Nina said, I mean, we are, fueling, not only the crime scene, but also it's such a loss on competitiveness. It's such a loss on the economy of Europe. This is, when you go to scams, this is a non-legit. You're losing basically the legit buy, the sales, because there is not only the price of the scam, but there is the fact that people are then get worried and they don't want to buy online. Because, if they buy online, they could get scammed, or actually they're worried that if they contact, a family of a friend, they can get scammed as well. So that gap actually is very big. And we need that because we need the legit economy, to be able to have all that trust, because the whole internet has to be based on this trust.
Please.
No, I just wanted to react because, of course, I think from where I sit, from the NATO perspective, that is an incredibly important question. Look, you already said, and I completely agree, that where you sit is where you stand. So clearly for our friends in Tallinn, in Warsaw, who are on the front line, they have seen time and time again through their historical experience what the Russian aggression looks like. I actually don't need to really make a big case for spending more on defense, strengthening the defense industrial base, recognizing that we're not at peace. The further we go from the front line, the more making that case is really important. We're trying to do that. This is something where we need, I think, citizens to work with us to, I would say, the main mission is to build a culture of defense, because for many of our younger generations, we grew in a peace dividend society. And that was great. And we sort of took it to be a status quo, as if freedom, as if democracy, as if peace are something that are just a given and don't have to be protected. And unfortunately, we're no longer in that security environment. So it's really important that we do change that calculus. And as NATO Secretary General says, yes, Spain is far, but Russians' hyperballistic missiles would reach Spain in 5 minutes. So we need to understand that we are all on the front line now. And the second point to that question, I'll be very brief. Yes, of course, we think about all the potential economic and security damages connected to cyber criminality. Great. From a security perspective, what I would place at the top of my list of worries would be groups like Salt Typhoon that are actually not about cyber criminality. They are about planting themselves in our critical network with the possibility, whenever time dictates, to intervene and shut them off too. And that could be something that in a time of crisis or war could really be incredibly detrimental to our ability to defend ourselves. So yes, cybercrime is very important, but strategically, let's think about all those actors that are actually already in our critical network, just waiting for the right time. And we know they're there, right?
If I can just, I'll be brief. I think that how the threat is perceived also largely depends on how we frame it, right? So at EXO, we sort of started moving away from saying cybersecurity, going towards cyber resilience, which is more what it's about. And you could even go further now and talk about digital resilience to encompass AI and everything. So that you're talking about leveraging tech to increase our ability to withstand and bounce back from attacks that inevitably will happen. It also gives more a notion of collective responsibility, I think, to be able to work and together against those kind of attacks. So I think it's a rhetoric and framing issue as well. And on your point, I would just say that I think a recent Eurobarometer report showed that over 70% of organizations still don't provide any sort of training to their staff on cybersecurity. And we have to start there.
Yeah, very good. Yes, absolutely. It's also our talent barometer that says that our employers don't provide enough training for those kind of attacks. So I think everything starts with information. I'm very intrigued by your observation, Salvatore, as JEA, Junior Achievement Perspective, because not only because as Manpower brand, we go together in the schools exactly to talk with the younger generation in the school to teach that democracy is not a given and is something that requires continuous effort. And I think that also as citizen, business leader, and fathers and mothers, this is an interesting point to make sure that I grew up with a song in Italy that was famous. The title is Freedom is Participation. I think that we should not lose this pleasure to share with our younger generation that is something that they have to continue to conquer every day. It's not a given because of the past. And unfortunately, when we look to the participation of the electoral vote, this is something that we need to work all together to make sure that the social dialogue remains, because this was also one of the messages of our Vice President, was about social inclusion that starts with awareness of the community.
Thank you. And now the biggest challenge in 20 seconds, 30. So I would like you in 20 seconds to think what will be the key takeaway that our lovely audience stay until now here. They can leave the room and they say, Ricardo said that. So you can start.
My reflection is that I am in the right industry, because we start to talk about technology and we always talk about skills and people. And so I think that maybe my quote as my group philosophy is people first, digital always.
I like this because Digital Europe.
Don't say tensions is not capital.
Thank you very much for reminding me that. No, I mean, for me, I think it's like maybe each of us in the room have to take a New Year resolution to upskill next year and actually try to do that resolution as opposed to the others.
Yes, we followed 3 points very quickly. Firstly, it would be practice like we operate. So leverage cyber ranges for competence development. I would say hire from the pipeline that we train and look at the unconventional talent, like I mentioned. And then I would also say, let's try and stay ahead of the curve as well a bit. So maybe look into creating a competency blueprint of sorts for cyber skills and dual use and emerging tech, because I think that will be very increasingly important. And that's something that we at Excel will start looking at next year.
I guess I would say, especially if you're looking into career opportunities, I would say there's more and more, the defense sector, the security sectors are going to require more and more stronger digital skills. Our entire sector, the defense sector, is being disrupted, and even the most classic functions like military planning, where it used to be very much its own thing, these days, because of software intensive acquisitions, needs people that have high digital skills. So if you are looking, I would say the defense sector is really an interesting place to be, if you, not just because of the experimentation that you get to do, but also because, of course, you contribute to the security and defense of your own country.
And I will conclude by saying that if you want to learn more about defense, Nels, Marco, my team is here. We have the Digital Resilience and Defense Working Group at Digital Europe. You can learn more. And I want to really thank you all for staying here. Congratulations. I enjoyed the panel. And please join me to applaud our panelists.
Thank you. Thank you. You're like a very good conversation, not in the, let's say, the easiest topic. And I have to say that time flies when you're together with the good people. And it's time to conclude. We are ending our summit. And oh boy, I have a challenge now. How to conclude all those good thoughts what I have given out here during this morning. But I'm trying to do my best and to do it like with 1 minute in order not to take too much time from your networking and lunchtime. So when I'm thinking back when we started today in the morning, then I think there are some like very good thoughts what I would like to re-emphasize. Cecilia brought out that the digital skills are Europe's economic and strategic backbone. I couldn't agree more there. And she also brought out that the scaling what already works should be our next step, not to thinking out all the new things, but to scale what already works in order to be fast. I agree there. EVP Minsatu brought out that the digital skills are no longer optional, but they are the conditions for full citizenship, participation, and sovereignty in EU. And I think we all agree there. One very little bit good point was she also set out, or maybe that to meet the expectations, she said that EU is a complex mechanism that requires agility to function well. And I think we agree all with the complex mechanism part, and the public-private partnership is something which is critical there in order to give the agility and in order to help to boost the next steps in the digital skills field, I think. Karen said out something what very well echoed with me. I liked it very much, or this analog was very good, that the skills should be treated like a critical infrastructure that built systematically and inclusively together with the public-private partnership. And this, I think, something which I can agree with 100%. In the first panel, there was lots of discussion about that how we must to train both in workforce and educators. In both sides, training is needed, and education systems must be modernized, and partnerships are the key in order to do that. And of course, it was emphasized again that the skills are the heart of Europe's competitiveness, resilience, and security agenda. They are all connected. Maybe I will not start to conclude or try to conclude the last panel as it was done very freshly right now, and our panelists did a very good conclusion words here said out. So once again, I thank you all the speakers, all the partners for making this event possible, and even more thankful I am all the participants. I hope you all took from here some good ideas with you. And of course, let me remind you, this is not the end of the conversation. This is the beginning of the conversation. And I hope very much that we can continue this conversation together with all of you in our flagship event in Master of Digital in 25th and 26th of February next year. So you are all invited now to the networking lunch, and in the networking lunch area, you also find the Google Education Pool. So to see how we can deal with educators also in the practice. Thank you again all for participating. Have a great lunch.